Greetings, programs. Welcome to episode 4, titled A Sense of Awe as an Atheist. So, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God. Oh no, you don't believe in anything, say all the religious types. Well, that's just not true, but we'll deal with that later. So what does give me a sense of awe if it's not God? Well, a number of things, really, but not God, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be an atheist. Some of these are obvious, same ones that you probably have, just looking up at the night sky far from town and simply comprehending some of the vast scale of the galaxy. The universe is so vast, and one day our children will reach out to those stars. They'll travel between them and do things and achieve things we can never understand. And this is the root of my awe. You see, we live on the very edge, and it's an amazing time. Just think about the massive reality-shaking things that are beginning right now, and that most people aren't even aware of, not even slightly. They just relegate some of the awesome things we're going to talk about to the realm of science fiction. And sure, they were in the realm of science fiction, but a lot of things we're going to talk about today, and there are more than just what I'm going to cover today, but I only have limited time, but some of these things are happening right now. And so I'm going to talk about some of them now. We know at some point we are going to solve the problem of aging. There's been any number of fantasy and science fiction books that have dealt with this. Some of them good, some of them bad. Some of them it's just a background noise, others it's a central part of the plot, like Altered Carbon, for example, where in theory nobody has to die. In that although bodies can age and they can die, the person lives on as a recording. We know that in theory it is possible to record a mind even if we can't do it right now. So that in some way, at some point in the future, we are going to end death. We know it's on the horizon at some point. But what people don't seem to realize is exactly how close it is. And this is one of the sort of the two parts to my sense of awe that I'm going to tell you about today. So all my life, I'd assumed that things like people getting old and dying, it sucked, but mature people just accept it. And that the idea that it might end one day was just a sci-fi thing. One day in the future, like warp drive and transporters. Well, it's not. You and me, if you're listening to this, and it's not a recording from far, far in the past, we're dead. We, like the billions before us, are going to age and die. There's nothing new there, nothing's changed. But what is news is how close we are to ending that as a species. It's early days yet, no argument. But there are people being born now who may never die. That's how close we could be to this. And this is footnote number 1, which I will put below. So to give a brief overview, because the footnote includes a list of really cool videos by different groups, which you will see in the footnote. But to give a quick thumbnail description here, one of the major causes of aging is faulty cells that should have died off and don't. We all know that our cells die and are replaced, and that's good. What people aren't aware of is a lot of the time the signal that a cell is supposed to get that says, hey, you're no good, you should die now and be replaced, they ignore it. They can't get the signal, they don't care, problems occur, and so they hang around causing problems. I believe the nickname is a zombie cell. There are now treatments that can kill them off. This is good, because a dead cell can be replaced by a fresh, healthy new cell, even in an older person. And the second cause is a change in metabolic enzyme levels of various types, NAD+ being a big one. There are enzyme levels in young creatures that change as those creatures age, and if those can be artificially restored, it can combat many of the effects of aging. It's not perfect, but it is a start. See footnote number 2. And telomeres, this is the third thing. Telomeres are the markers on the end of the chromosomes that stop data being lost during duplication. A buffer of blank lines, if you will, a little bit like the margin around the edge of a notebook. Every time a chromosome is copied, one or more chunks is lost off the end. When it all runs out, the chromosome can no longer be copied, and that cell, ideally, dies, sometimes becomes one of those zombie cells that I mentioned earlier that hangs around causing problems. But with new techniques such as CRISPR and Cas9, which you will find in the notes below, it is possible to edit chromosomes and to help prevent cell senescence by editing telomeres. And if anything is easy to edit, it's telomeres, which are essentially just a repeating chunk of blank rubbish stuck on the end. And these are just 3 things from a list that contains many more things. And here's the point. If you're young enough, you may live long enough for these technologies to become actionable cures rather than things that we're just finding out about now, and available in your lifetime. And when that happens, when you live to be 150 in good health, that gives the researchers time to do better. And these researchers themselves may be profiting from these advances. So they will live longer to do better and more consistent long-term research, to leverage these techniques into even better ones. And don't forget, these things, these techniques described in the videos below, they use the science or groups of science or branches of science that have only been recently invented. Imagine what will be discovered when these techniques, which are brand new now, are a mature science. Now, does that give you a sense of wonder? Because it does for me. One day our children will look back and cry for those on old Earth who had to die. And this is footnote number 3, the dragon story from CGP Grey and friends. See in the footnote. It's great, you should go watch it. Now, religious folks have prayers. I'm not religious, so I don't know exactly what the prayer does for the religious person. And maybe what a prayer actually does varies from person to person. But I have some idea, and I think it's almost a sense of sacredness, a sense of hope or of wonder. Obviously, I'm not talking about, oh please God save me from the exploding bomb. That's a whole other story. But I have something similar that I think serves me in the same capacity. And it's something I go back to and listen to when I just want to feel that awesomeness. Because sure, it's a sort of a background sense, but sometimes you just need to get the real deal from the source, as it were. And so this here is a section taken from my favorite book and from my favorite audiobook, which is called Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality. And in case you don't know what it is, it's a fanfic intended to explain what rationality is and how it works, as well as being entertaining. And the central conceit is this: what if Voldemort had been a genius instead of a complete idiot? That's essentially the crux of it. Everything flows from that one thing. The war turned out a bit differently. Harry's auntie married a professor instead of Vernon Dursley, I think it was. And Harry's major power in the story is that he goes to Hogwarts with somewhat adult critical faculties. Talks a bit like a young professor, as it were. But in it, the author betrays his bias on some subjects. And this is not necessarily a bad thing. Because one of the things he has issues with is death. And really, who could blame him? Because if you think about it, there is a bright path leading to the future. If we embrace our higher faculties and our reason and our empathy, the bright parts that make us human, that makes us better, rather than that angry monkey rage and tribalism that would have us smash it all down, because learning to think is just too damn hard, well, we can have that bright path. It is possible. And this is the quote, the little thing that is like a prayer for me, modified from the podcast, which I will link to below in footnote number 4. I know you now. I comprehend your nature. You symbolize death. Through some law, you are a shadow that death casts onto the world. And death is not a thing that I will ever embrace. It is only a childish thing that the human species has not yet outgrown. And someday we'll get over it. And people won't have to say goodbye anymore. And someday, when the descendants of humanity have spread from star to star, they won't tell children about the history of ancient Earth until they're old enough to bear it. And when they learn, they'll weep to hear that such a thing as death had ever once existed. You are not invincible, and someday the human species will end you. I will end you if I can, by the power of mind and science. I won't cower in fear of death, not while I have a chance of winning. I won't let death touch me. I won't let death touch the ones I love. And even if you do end me before I end you, another will take my place, and another, until the wound in the world is healed at last. Fear us, death. My people are coming for you. Much of reason is yet new, and it is scary and unfamiliar to the ape hiding in the cave. But while fragile, it has so much power, and it can take us to the stars. Our children will stride among the stars like giants, even if some terrified few, huddling in their rags, hide in the caves. Hear us, O stars in the sky, for we are humanity, and we are coming. So yeah, that's what gives me hope. That the shiny, nice Star Trek future doesn't have to be a fantasy. We can have it. We can end death. And we can walk among the stars like giants. Because these are the earliest days of dawn that our descendants will look back to and wonder. Because the future is long. And this is the lost ancient time that people can only dream about and wonder what happened then. Because the future is so much vaster than our past has been. So yeah, that's all for now. That's what gives me my sense of wonder. And I'll see you all next time. Bye for now.